Hey guys, Asher here. So I'm making this video to help everyone get a better understanding with JUnit. So if you haven't done so, I'd suggest pausing the video and making a new project, and then you can follow along with me. Alright, so first things first, we're going to need to create a class within our JUnit folder or project, and so I'm going to go ahead and quickly do that. And I'm going to use the example of a employee. So we have an employee class, and so now there are a couple of components that an employee has, such as a name, an ID. So I'm going to start off with an ID. So print or private int emp ID. We have a private string name, private string email, and then maybe something like our age is included. Okay, so we have these, and so I want to kind of just show you guys a very basic understanding of how to use JUnit, how to implement it inside of your code, and so forth. So to begin, we're going to need some constructors, or a constructor, as well as some getters and setters to test against. So let me just include that in there. So now that I have a constructor, I am going to get some getters, and then I'm going to include my setters. My setters, and there we go. So I pretty much have a class with getters and setters and a constructor. So now we need to create our test case. Now there's a number of ways in which we can do this. Well, I should say there's only two ways that we should do this, or can do this. If I hold Alt and Enter as I'm inside this public class employee, it will say create test. Now if I click on this right now, it'll say no test routes found. Would you like to create a test in the same source root? Now I could hit OK, and then my test class will be inside here, but I want to separate the test cases here. So I'm going to hit cancel, and then where it says JUnit, I'm going to hit right click, new directory. I'm going to call this directory test. Okay, so now that I have a test folder, it doesn't, Intellij doesn't really know that this is a test folder. Just because I named it, we need to flag it as that. So right click JUnit once more. We're going to scroll down until we see Open Module Settings, or you can hotkey press F4. And then now we have, inside of our project, we have all of our folders that we're working with. Now notice that src, source, is flagged as a source. So we're going to flag our test folder as tests. I'm going to hit apply, hit OK, and now we have our folder is flagged as a test folder. Now if I do the same thing, if I hold Alt, press Enter, and if I hit create test, I'll have a new pop-up menu pop up. We're going to be using JUnit 4, and so I'm going to go ahead and scroll through that in the testing library. I'm going to fix it so that it knows that we're using JUnit 4 because it doesn't find the module yet. And so now it fixes it, and now it says the class name employee test, and so now I've created a test class, or I'm going to create a test class that is going to test against the employee. So notice that it has all of the members that we have included in our employee class, and so if we want to test against all of these, we can just click on all of them, and then there's a setup and teardown generator that I'll explain a little bit later. So if I do that, it loads them all in. Now, setup and teardown, as you can see, it says before and then after. It's basically what do you want to do before you run a test case, and what do you want to do after. So, I don't know, maybe like open up a file, close a file, or make a instance of an employee object, or something of that nature. But I'm just going to focus here. I just want to stick to the very basics of creating a JUnit test. So let's say get, we'll actually go with name. So get name. So we're under the get name method, so we're going to be testing against this method get name. So first things first, we need to include a object employee. So I'm going to say employee E equals new employee, and the constructor, do we include a constructor? So ID, name, email, age. So ID, name, and then we have an email, and then age, we'll say 32. And so now we have this employee named John Smith. And so if you've ever done any form of unit testing, you'll know what assert is. If not, that's okay. If you type assert, you'll have a drop-down menu that basically shows you all the ways to test something. So you have assert equals, assert array equals, and it's basically a way for the test class to test your program. And it basically says, does it pass this assert or does it fail this assert? So we're going to do assert equals. And so now, as you notice, a bunch came down, drop-down menu came down. And so typically, it's not showing again. Not sure how to get it. It's the expected goes here, and then the actual. So with that in mind, I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to put expected is going to be John Smith, and then the actual, well, this is where we're going to test our method. So I'm going to say e.getName. And so now I have this. Now to run this, it's the same as you run any class. You can press F9, and it shows you a bunch. You know, it says if you want to just test the employee test get name, or if you want to just test the entire class as a whole, you can do one or the other. So we're just going to hit get name, and then it should pass once it runs. So there we go. Now if I change this up, I do this, so now when it gets name, there's no space in between John and Smith. It should fail. And the neat thing about this is it shows you the expected versus the actual. And so, and it gives you a yellow exclamation or a yellow button with an exclamation mark in there. So it's pretty helpful. And that's kind of the very basic of using a unit testing. It's the ability to test your program or your methods and to see if the expected output is actually giving you that output. And in the industry, a lot of people use this, and it's something to really consider when you're writing code. One more thing, if I want, I can put my employee here, but what happens is it doesn't resolve it. And so what you could do is you can just say employee E, and then let's fix this up. And so it knows that there's an employee E, and so during the setup phase, it will create this employee, and then this should work when it does this. But let's find out. If I run it, it doesn't work. Let's see. What did I do wrong? Oh, that's probably why. Because I forgot to get rid of that employee, and so now it's going to change E to this. And so now when I run it, it should work. There we go. All right. So that's pretty much it for JUnit. I'm going to be extending the idea of how to use it and why we use it, as well as why I got inspired to use JUnit. Thank you, and have a great day.